Jordan Peterson goes on Pints with Aquinas and confirms that Joe Rogan is leaning deeper into Christianity. Not only that, but Pints kind of lays it on him thick regarding his views about God.
Why can't it be a story and there be no historical Jesus? Like, why can't it just be a made-up story that's really helpful?
The simplest explanation for Christ involves his...
Okay, this is very interesting. We've been covering Joe Rogan. We internally had a conversation of maybe this is confirmation Jordan Peterson secretly watches more of our videos, right? We know the wonderful Miss Tammy Peterson watches my videos. Shout out to her. She shared a couple of videos. But is it possible that he's watching some of our videos, picking up on some of the clues that Joe Rogan's been sprinkling? Probably not, but nevertheless.
He probably just watches Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he probably just watches Joe Rogan.
Why do you think it is that it seems like more bigger name folks are becoming Christian? To some degree, like Candace Owens and was that Rod Schneider, your bride?
Yeah, Ian Hersey Ali, Neil Ferguson, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, Douglas Murray.
Rogan. What are you doing with Joe Rogan?
Yeah, well, Joe's already, he's got a foot in the camp.
He's a lot less disparaging of Christianity than he once was, which we all really appreciate. Thank you, Joe.
Joe figured it out. Joe figured it out.
Okay.
Whoa.
Joe figured what out?
Joe figured what out? What are we talking about?
Joe figured it out. I don't know, man. He got pressed on the case for Christ and kind of blew it off.
Yeah.
Just kind of brushed it off. I'm not sure if Joe figured it out.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure we're using the same definitions. Like, I think when I say Christian and when Jordan Peterson hears Christian, I think we're hearing different things and we're using the word different. Right? You'll see what he says next. Go ahead.
Because here's why. Here's the answer to that. Sacrifice is the basis of the community.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the...
Is it? What does that mean?
Well, of course it is. Well, it's all about you.
Right, no.
Well, then you're not in a community.
Right.
Right? Then you're a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about you. You don't have a community. So what do you do to join a community? You sacrifice. Obviously.
Yeah.
What? How about everything? Well, that's the Christian offer. Is that the basis of community? Well, why do we put the crucifix at the center of our communities?
Okay.
Because we know that voluntary self-sacrifice is the basis of the stable psyche and state.
I love this. Issue is sacrifice is the byproduct of what happened with the ultimate sacrifice. So we sacrifice as followers of Jesus because of what Jesus first did. He made him who knew no sin to be sin so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. And then we're ministers of reconciliation. And then we're laying down our lives. So I think, unfortunately, as much as I love Jordan Peterson, here, I think he's putting the carriage before the horse. I think he's looking at the downstream effects of Christianity, the fruit of Christianity, without embracing the root of Christianity, right? And so when then he gets more and more pragmatic, right? Go ahead and play it.
You don't know we know it. That's why we worship it. It's like, well, what did Christ do? Took the sins of the world upon himself and offered everything. Well, is that the basis of community? Yeah, it's your responsibility, buddy. So get at it.
So is the idea that as people kind of
I like how angry he gets.
understand this and begin to live this way, they become a lot more open to the Christian message and find it more persuasive? Is that what's happening?
Well, I think they are increasingly apprehensive about the weakness of the alternative. And this is true. Dawkins called himself a cultural Christian like 2 weeks ago. Well, why? Well, how about because he's terrified of the Islamic fundamentalists? Yes. How about that?
Oops. Oops.
Jordan Peterson said, I work at Daily Wire.
Yeah, and they came hard at Jordan Peterson after October 7th, right? Oh. So, he's spot on, right? So he's spot on in that, so like, the alternative is worse.
Yeah.
The alternative is way worse.
100%.
Afraid that he won't speak against them in public. Right, well, there's something to think about. Oh, you mean the Christians had something right? I guess so. What? Exactly. Oh, well, they had something right. It's like, yeah, they had something right. What is it exactly that they had right? Principle of voluntary self-sacrifice. That's a good one. Yeah. That's the central motif. Why else? Well, the humanists aren't doing such a great job, are they? They seem to fall into the camp of hedonism or totalitarianism at the drop of a bloody hat. And that's happened. It's happening now. It sweeps the campuses. They're the admirers of Hamas. Brutal. Yeah. The sweep of hedonistic pride. The clarion call of the Marxists. It's like, there's the humanism for you.
But see, Dawkins would say even a blind hog is going to find an acorn occorn occasionally. And so we shouldn't be surprised.
He's the one who called himself a cultural Christian.
Yeah, you're not putting that on him. But his point is, it's false. It's false.
Yeah,
just accept the good that came from it, like the things you're talking about.
You can't do that. No, that's the thing is, that's not. It isn't. Judeo-Christian doctrine is not a scientific hypothesis. The people who came up with the stories weren't scientists 3,000 years ago. It's not a scientific theory. What is it? It's a story. We see the world through a story.
Yeah.
We inhabit a story. What's the story? The principle of voluntary self-sacrifice reflects the fundamental spirit of being itself.
Why can't it be a story and there be...
Okay. So, what?
What? What? Wait.
I love Jordan Peterson so much, but what?
What is the story? The story is the idea of fundamental self-sacrifice being itself.
Yeah.
And he said it so like, boom.
Yeah. Now, Pints with a Grain is right. Matt rightfully pushes back.
He's adding great questions to get the context out of Jordan Peterson, which is sometimes difficult.
Why can't it be a story and there be no historical Jesus? Like, why can't it just be a made-up story that's really helpful?
The simplest explanation for Christ involves his historicity. I think that's just a non-starter. It's just simplest to assume that he existed.
Yes.
Partly, too, because the gospel story is insanely complicated. It's insanely... No one... I'll tell you a story. You tell me if you think
Hold on.
He's about to go on the...
So he goes on, we covered this on a previous video. He goes on to talk about Moses and the serpent, the bronze serpent being risen up. And then Jesus says, I'll be risen up in the same way. And that in order to heal you, you need a little bit of poison. And so that's our idea of modern medicine and so on and so forth. So I don't think, this is what I think. I don't think it's just cerebral and symbolic anymore. I don't believe that. And I don't believe that it's just Gnosticism. I don't believe that it's just we are going to get more and more and more information. I don't think it's that. I think Jordan Peterson believes in a literal Jesus. He believes that the Bible is true. I think he believes that some of the history in the Bible is true. I don't know if he's inerrant. I think the aspect that perhaps he's missing is the conversion experience. The conversion religious experience is not something that's self-internalized and actualized. It's actually something that is external, that happens internal. I think that, and that's what I mean by the carriage is going before the horse. When the internal happens and you've been made new, the external is logical. But you can't ask people to live like Jesus and sacrifice like Jesus and hold all the fruit of the Spirit like Jesus without there being something supernatural that happens to them by Jesus. So I think that's the part where, like, we could point to the motif and we could point to the beauty of it and all that kind of stuff. But when he is pressed further about hell, when he's pressed further about conversion, I think that therein lies like some of the tension. He's
also wearing like a Eastern Orthodox iconography suit.
He talks about the guy who makes his jackets for him,
which is like so crazy. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like he explains things super well from like a knowledgeable standpoint, and even like an appreciation. But I don't like, it almost feels like he doesn't explain things from the life change perspective.
Right.
And like the true understanding comes when you accept Jesus. And so it's like he knows the motifs, he has the appreciation for everything, and will tell the atheists that they're wrong. Yet when describing the core fundamentals of the faith, or even just what we all rally around as Christians, it has that dissonance from what we as Christians actually believe, which is like, oh no, this radically changed my life. This isn't just better for society.
Right.
It radically changed my life. It's true, and it's better for society because it is true. Not just it's better for society and it may be true. And there's that level of conviction that I think would be awesome to see him come to sooner rather than later. But even earlier, or in the video yesterday or 2 days ago, him saying sure to the idea of believing in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And so that's interesting. Sure isn't a very strong conviction word by any means, but it definitely isn't disagreement. And when you're talking about disagreement or agreeing with the death, burial, and bodily resurrection of Jesus, even if it's not a strong agreement and it's kind of a sure, that's a pretty strong position to take, even if it's not 100%, committed in a sense.
Yeah, because what he does is, he does this really interesting thing of kind of breaking it down to the idea of it just being an adventure, right? And so this is him talking about hell.
His state of juvenile deception and machination, manipulation, that he's going to aim upward. He has the dream of the spiral upward. And at the pinnacle of the spiral is God. Well, what is that? That's the ever-receding spirit that calls you forward. So imagine that as you mature, you're a child, and then you're an adult, things beckon to you. Okay, but they change. But the fact of the beckoning remains constant.
Yeah.
What beckons? It's a definition. God. And what is it? Well, it's the same thing that broods over the water. It's the same thing that brings the prideful to their knees. It's the same thing that produces the flood or the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's the same thing as the call to adventure. It's the same thing as the crucifixion of Christ. It's all the same thing. That's the monotheistic hypothesis. Does it exist? Does the call to adventure exist?
So, the call to adventure.
Do you think, right, that the
This is a great question. Listen to what he asked him.
reason a lot of Catholics want you to become Catholic is in part because they are people of goodwill and they love you and they want your salvation. But do you think it's also because they want the big kid on campus to be on their side so they can feel more secure in a faith that they're not even sure they fully accept?
Yikes.
Do you ever feel kind of used, like these different groups just kind of want you on their team?
Well, there's a presumptuousness about the religiously hypocritical, right? That's the Pharisaic tendency it's something like the desire to falsely elevate moral status. It's something like that.
Okay.
You know, and so some of it's genuine confusion, you know, because I suppose people think I'm being a weasel with my words. I won't commit. It's like,
No, I heard about, I wouldn't think that after I heard what you just had to say about
The self-awareness, being a weasel with my words. I love that.
global warming. It doesn't seem like you're okay alienating people if you think something is the case. You'll say it. What you just said about global warming and climate change. I mean, that will not only piss a lot of people off, but it'll also have people write you off. So if your sole goal was to not be written off, and that's why you're not picking a side and being obvious about it, well, then it doesn't seem to me that you would have...
I don't have any brook for the nature worshippers. It's like, no, we dealt with you guys back at the time of Elijah,
right? But and
now you're back.
But with faith, yeah. So you think some people say you're being a weasel with your words, but...
Yeah, well, why doesn't Peterson just say what he thinks? It's like, because I don't think the same way.
Yeah, okay.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
You know, Christ himself, he says to his followers exactly that. Pick up your cross and follow me.
He understands and appreciates the faith, but it's the commitment level that he even said, like, well, if I just come out and jump in it, like, I understand the level of commitment it takes to actually follow that. So it's in a way, and it's probably his Eastern Orthodox connections, like that you talk about, is that like there is a really high standard that the Protestant church doesn't have. So we're like, just come to Jesus. And he's around a bunch of Eastern Orthodox and Catholic folks that have a high view of what it means to actually come to the faith. And so he probably too much hyper intellectualizes what it means to come to the faith, but almost in a good way. If he does come to the faith, or when he comes to the faith, it's going to be like sold out because he really gets it. There's not going to be like, I'm going to be a TikTok preacher for a month or for a year and then like backslide because I found out about.
Yeah, he's not going to pull Kanye.
You know?
The interesting thing is to be Orthodox or to be Catholic is not just about profession. It's about practice for them.
Yeah.
So what that means is they are like, he's coming to the faith, but they don't see him as in the in-group.
Yeah.
Because there's a process to go through before you can be confirmed. There's a baptism you have to do. There's specific things you got to go through. And it's not you came to church this Sunday, you said a prayer, maybe you went to the class for the new believer, and then next Sunday...
Text the number on the screen to get plugged in.
Yeah, and then next Sunday you're baptized. That's not how it works. They make you go through a year process. Orthodox folks fast every Wednesday and Friday. Like so maybe that's why. Maybe that's the paradigm that he has in some of this stuff. Shout out to Pints with Aquinas. Great interview, long, but I thought it was good. And I think, again, I think there's some truth to like we got to raise the bar higher.
Totally.
Right? You got to. Maybe it shouldn't be so casual. Maybe it can't be maybe it shouldn't be you come to church Sunday, you throw up your hand, say a prayer, scan a QR code, come to a class, get baptized. Maybe it should be, right?
Yeah, it's so accurate. I love our church, but it's accurate.
Maybe it should be a bit, some more resistance. But maybe the added resistance is perhaps what's keeping him from.
That's true. It's like a push and a pull there.
Yeah.
It's like, one, you can see how attractive that is to have some resistance as a Protestant. But then 2, you're also seeing someone in real time struggle with the idea of making that commitment, maybe because of the traditions of the denominations he's in, overemphasized the tradition of it more than the actual salvation of it.
More than the faith aspect.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed that video, check out this video that we just released where it seems like Jordan Peterson may have actually made up his mind on the identity of Jesus. All right, I'll see you over there.